Hello, hello. This is a treat because Phil is the busiest man at Cannes and has been for a couple of decades at least, a bit more. And he's a dear friend as well. And we actually pulled him away from the Palais. And we're going to have a little conversation about Cannes being the zeitgeist, really, of our industry. It has reflected, it has forecast, it has really been prescient in the changes in our industry. A little anecdote, I came in '94, I was a little puppy, I was in London, and it was about maybe 500 people here. It was mainly European. There were hardly, I don't think, any Americans. It was 90% creative art directors and copywriters and film producers in the day. And obviously, there have been multiple, what I would call, waves of change. Then there was the unbundling of media. I was privileged to be the first non-creative jury chair of the Media Alliance in 1999. And I think media started coming. And then it expanded to cyber. It expanded across the full spectrum of disciplines and techniques. I think there was obviously the social age. That was a big point. You know, there was a technology age, a data age, and maybe we're in that fifth wave of change. I'm going to call it the human agentic age, that obviously is going to have profound influence on business, life, culture, and obviously the creativity. But we're going to just have a little journey about Cannes, then, now, and next. So, Phil, firstly, reflect on your time as the chair, CEO, president of the Cannes Lions. How have you seen the change from the past, bring it, the past to date? What were the big inflection points for you?
Well, it's a big question because it's a long journey, but if I think back to 2006 when I took over the festival, it was, as you say, much, much smaller, and I had for many years been to the film festival, and so on my first visit to this festival, I was comparing it with the film festival, and I couldn't believe how small it was compared to the film festival. And I remember thinking, I've just taken over this platform, and it's a huge industry that it's serving, but the event seems really small. And I said to myself at that point, the way I put it in my head was, it didn't feel culturally relevant. It felt like the world was passing it by. And the industry was very internal looking. They were giving each other awards and enjoying that. But beyond that, there was no meat to it, really. So I remember thinking at the time, I wonder if we can make this event more meaningful, more important, and more culturally relevant. And I didn't really know what I meant by culturally relevant, to be honest. But I kind of, in my head, I vaguely knew. And it took, it's taken almost 20 years, but I think now it is fair to say that it's a culturally relevant event, which it needs to be because our industry is communicating with billions of people a day. And we have to take that responsibility seriously, and we have to talk to people where they are in the way that they understand. And we've been privileged to watch all of that unfold in front of us at Cannes Lions.
Yeah, I think the purity of the creative craft in its original concept, I'd love you to kind of talk me through that evolution of almost the definition of creativity, because obviously creativity was it hadn't kind of atomized. Story worlds are techniques, platforms, mediums, and you've reflected that in the awards, actually. So to really get a feel for creativity in a holistic sense, if you're a brand leader or you're running a huge holding company or you're really interested, you have to just absorb the festival to kind of see the different interpretations of creativity. But take me through that journey to how the festival has kind of try to evolve and maybe help the industry define the creativity?
Yeah, it really all starts with the Lions. So the Lions take place in the big building down the end there, if anybody's ever been to the Palais. I see there are lots of people with lanyards on, so I'm happy to see that. But it really all starts with the Lions. So when we see a development or a movement in the industry, if we launch a lion, the industry kind of coalesces around that. So when we introduced mobile, for instance, that became a kind of lightning rod for the industry to try to use mobile in the most creative way possible. And there are many examples of that. And the most recent one, and the one that really is the untold story of the last couple of years at Cannes Lions, is B2B. Yeah. So we launched the B2B Lions a couple of years ago, and what that has done is it's kind of created a lightning rod for B2B marketers. And out of nowhere, B2B has taken its place with all the other kinds of communications globally. B2B is winning in the Lions across all categories, not just the B2B category. We had a B2B summit this morning at 9 o'clock this morning over at the Majestic Hotel, 200 B2B marketers. And so what we're able to do is kind of see where the industry is interested in joining the conversation and then curate. It takes a couple of years. Health is another example. So pharma was nowhere in the festival 10 years ago, and we've tried to help the pharma industry to be more creative by using the Lions, and then it kind of ripples out from there. Of course, there are lots of other factors in the growth, and a lot of it is the changing media landscape, right? So 2019, there was no Apple at the festival, there was no Amazon at the festival, there was no Walmart at the festival. The rise of commerce as a media platform has been relatively new, and the scale of it here is echoing the scale of it in our industry, and that's the critical thing. We reflect the industry. You must have seen that a lot over your time as well, Paul.
Yeah, I love that reflection. I call it the mirror. You've been the mirror to the industry, essentially, and you've been in step with it. I always have felt that you led as well. I think the humility that Phil, you've been a great friend for over 2 decades, but I really think you underestimate. It is a one-off. Nothing can compete with Cannes, and you have to come. It is absolutely essential, whether you're a student, whatever part of the ecosystem you're in, you have to. But yes, I think that ability to understand, if you're a brand leader, that's another interesting thing. Procter & Gamble came. They were one of the first clients. Brands didn't come. And it was kind of church and state, wasn't it? The creatives, in fact, kind of other people in ads didn't come. It was the creatives. But brands was one of the inflection points. But I think the way I view it is at the macro level. Obviously, there's a micro level. Obviously, there's multiple techniques. There's multiple disciplines. But at the macro level, if you're a kind of CEO and you come here, or if you were a CMO and you've got the totality of your communication, you might be very interested in multiple aspects of the industry. But the other thing that I think you've championed is this notion of creativity. We talked a bit about that. I want to keep on that theme. But responsibility, authenticity, how you turn up, the redefinition of each of these disciplines. None of us have got it cracked. But I think if you're not a student and you don't immerse yourself at Cannes, then you never will. So that has been the mirror of the industry. So I think if we just,
No, I mean, I was going to say, I think whatever you're here at Cannes to do, right? So it's a really broad church, and there are lots of people who are having business development meetings, they're having relationship meetings. But whatever you're here at Cannes to do, you have to understand one thing. And that is that the brands principally are here to learn about creativity. Now, we know this because we've got the data. So the brands marketers are the ones who are actually spending, according to our footfall data, most of the time in the Palais. They're seeing the work, they're listening to the conversation, and they're trying to learn. And you have to understand that, because last year, it was brilliantly put to me by the CMO of a really, really big pharmaceutical company, And what he said to me was, look, your juries, as far as I'm concerned, are not giving lions out every year to a load of agencies for the fun of it. They're giving me a gift every year that I gently open. I look inside at the magic inside, and I use that gift to go to my CEO, the board, my CFO, to argue for investment in creative marketing. That's a really big deal because CMOs have a really hard time trying to advocate for capital allocation in marketing. It's really hard to measure. Everybody's a bit suspicious of it. It's seen as a cost, not an investment. McKinsey this week have launched some more data. I recommend everybody reads it. It's about the widening rift between CEOs and CMOs about who does what and who's responsible for what. And this is at the heart of the conversation. Whatever you're selling, if you're flogging ad tech or whatever you're doing, if you're just here to go to the parties, if you don't understand the tension between CMOs and the boardroom, you don't understand this industry. And that's the heart of really everything that's happening.
Yeah, what has also been visionary is your building out the capabilities to that point. Interesting acquisitions around WRAC, the Effies, obviously the organization, very revered, incredible organization. I have judged many Effies, and bringing them under the fold really joined the dots between the Effies, if you don't know, are obviously the effectiveness awards, and in many marketeers' perspective, they are the gold standard because it's the proof of effectiveness. But joining the dots on that. But where we are today, so a huge kudos to you and the vision and you and your team to bring those organizations under the fold. So let's just talk a little bit about now and reflect on it and try and tell me how the center of gravity of the festival has shifted. And what is that center of gravity today, do you think, in this automated technology? AI obviously has been a big conversation for 3 years or more at Cannes. But obviously, as you said, it's your role is to champion that creativity in all its manifestations and link it to business results. Yeah, but where is that center of gravity today?
Well, I think somebody said to me this morning, an advertising guy, an old advertising guy, was having a little bit of a complaining session about all the beaches, right? So all these tech platforms and what the hell does everybody do? Why are they here at this festival? And this guy said to me, just build a huge mirror opposite the beaches, right? So if anybody's wondering where the center of gravity is, just build a big mirror and have a look in the mirror, because they are on our stages, they are down the beaches, they are winning awards, they are engaging in the conversation, and it has shifted. There's no doubt, you know, you've got to be honest, it really has shifted from 20 years ago when it was all agency people to now a much richer conversation. If there are, you know, there's the AI theme this year. We've said it, but there are other themes. So the creator economy is a massive part of what's been happening over the last couple of years. We have got so many creators here, and we've got a special badge for them. They've got a whole stream going on, and that was something that bubbled up in the last couple of years. So the creator economy is changing everything. Technology is changing everything. But ultimately, if you're here, what you're trying to do, I think, is to draw a golden thread between creativity, effectiveness, and business outcomes, right? So that's the golden thread. And the reason we acquired the Effie, for instance, was so that not so we had some more awards, but so we had some data that we could tie that golden thread together from creative marketing to effective marketing to business outcomes. And if we don't do that well, if this industry doesn't do that well, then we will be found out, right? We're going to be found out that money is being wasted and effectiveness is not being maximized. And the boardroom will come down hard on this industry unless we get it right.
Yeah, I'm preoccupied by the C-suite, and I love the McKinsey report where there is a disconnect between the CMO and the CEO. Essentially, that was the big headline. And also understanding the role of the CFO, obviously a much more dominant role now. The CTO, obviously the CMO, who might be a new age CMO lifting into technology and data and analytics. And one anecdote which you might find amusing was that I ran a company called Naked in my past life, and Phil would give us a main stage. And I remember coming with, we had Nike, we had Coca-Cola, and we had Google, 3 senior executives on stage to have a very honest conversation. But there was a gentleman who came from Google in the early 2000s. There were 2 people from Google came to this festival. One was an ex-ad guy, Andy Burnt, who's still there, the chief creative officer. But it's kind of fascinating. And you look at the change. Obviously, Google Beach was one of the first big dominant media beaches or platform beaches. And obviously, you know, the creator economy, you look at, in America, YouTube is obviously the dominant viewing across all demographics, you know, and a lot of that is down to creators. So, you know, leaning into that is going to be kind of hugely important. But I've been blessed to see this. So we're getting towards the end of this discussion. Phil and I actually had a chance to meet up on Monday, and we were kind of, you know, I've often felt like there are certain years where you felt an extra excitement, or there was just a buzz, or you felt there was something going on. It could have, sometimes you couldn't put your finger on it, or other times it was like you could see that social was coming of age, for example. You know, you could see Meta and Snap, and you could see Twitter, you know, on all the stages. But I think we were saying it might be quite hard to put your absolute finger on it. But I think, and I don't want to put too many words into your mouth, they felt like this year there was something happening at the festival that is quite interesting and exciting. And I know we didn't want to get away too far because, you know, when you get too excited, you know, the economy, things outside of all of our control can take a dive. Can you kind of describe the general feeling and try and land the plane into some of the things that you think are really exciting at the festival that might foretell where we're going in the future?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things. Well, I can pick 2 things. There are probably lots and lots of things. One of them is about brand narrative. So if you look at the Edelman research that was launched this week in Cannes, you can see that trust in institutions is going through the floor, but brands are the one area where there is trust.
Yeah, they actually, in this study, brands are one of the most respected.
Yeah.
You know, politicians, a lot of celebrities are lower. Advertising people, by the way, are quite low.
Yeah. But I think that the key takeout there is that if you're a brand and you're not taking a position, then you're basically a commodity. And there is a real theme this week in Cannes about taking a narrative to counter all the negative and cynical narratives that are out there, for sure. And then the second theme is AI. And that was really, I thought, brought home to me by Apple, who were the first on stage on Monday morning. And Tor Myron...
Thor is amazing.
Yeah, he had amazing. And he had this phrase. He finished with this phrase, which was, "We are driving, AI is riding shotgun." And I think it's a beautifully put phrase because that is the question. That is the ultimate question. Will that continue? We're driving, AI is riding shotgun. Or is that going to change? Nobody knows the answer to that. I think everyone here really, really hopes it stays that way.
Yeah.
But that is the potentially existential and huge question, not only for this industry, but obviously for the world.
Yeah, I think that human agentic age. We're all talking about it. What I found on that, well, firstly, the former point, couldn't agree more. It's, so critical. But the AI has obviously pervaded almost. There are more AI panels than I think there are people that can. It's a kind of funny joke. But, what's actually interesting is the 99% perspiration around it. So obviously we will see more awards where obviously we will see how that human AI will redefine that future of creativity, the future of content, the future of story worlds. A lot of it is hygiene at the moment. But bravo to Thor, because obviously Apple is deeply technology, but they've always been a human company at the heart of it. I worry about some of the other platforms I was on a Microsoft stage and I said, I wish Microsoft was more human on their stage, because the last thing I'll say, which is I think apocryphal, is that Eric Schmidt did a video. If you haven't seen it, it was in April. Look it up, the 45-minute video. He talks about a dystopian future within 2 years. He's talking about, how AI models will be human, they will have all that sentiment, they will have EQ, but he caveats it by saying, this is San Francisco's viewpoint. And I quite like that, because it may ultimately come to pass. But I absolutely am betting on Thor, because brands that really stand the test of time are human brands. They have empathy, they actually have a promise, they deliver on the promise, they deliver it in their products, they deliver it in their advertising, which supports their products, and it's utterly through that organization. So I think Thor will be one of the lightning rods, his speech, actually. And there are a lot of speeches, by the way. Get your bums up to the festival, because it really is. I mean, Andrew Jassy, I think, is on this afternoon, literally.
Yeah. Peter Jackson, there's Reese Witherspoon, there's lots going on in there.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you all. Most importantly, Phil, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your mentorship. Thank you for everything you've done. And congratulations in the new role, executive chair of the largest events business on the festivals. And God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.